discussion. Yeah.
So the hangout was the main thing. The recording was something. Yeah. If it works out, it works out. I'm not going to sweat it. But we're at 9:03, so I'd like to go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to introduce Tim. He is a data engineer with me at Axial Healthcare, but he is also a community organizer with Code for Nashville. And he's here today to talk to us about some civic engagement data projects, database projects, and the pipeline. So, without further ado.
Awesome. Thanks. So to notice the date, which is larger than my chest, no, just about the same, is wrong. So it's very obviously wrong. That's because I gave the majority of this talk earlier in January at Code for Nashville. The majority of the talk is more content-based about projects that we're doing, and I can skim through that part a little bit, but there was part of the talk that I skipped, and that part of the talk was about tooling. How are we going to do data viz that allows flexibility to go all the way up to as complicated as UI, data science, etc., but also allows people to come in on the ground floor with very little experience doing any kind of software, or even using software, or even having connection to the internet, or laptops, or anything like that. So how can we make as low a barrier of entry as possible so that we have the broadest community conversation going into these data visualizations? And I'm realizing as I'm saying this that I haven't done a very good job of motivating. So let me tell you a little bit about Code for Nashville. None of this is relevant. I mean, maybe context, but I can always come back to this if you're curious, and we have a meetup. So it should be easy to find us. So Code for Nashville, I'm going to say briefly about our organization. We've been around for a little while. We're a brigade of a national organization called Code for America. The goal of Code for America, historically, I would say, has been to improve government with digital services, so bring government into the 21st century is kind of their shorthand for that. And Code for Nashville has often done similar things. We've tried to build apps. We've tried to get government to use our apps. We've made partnerships with people in government. But there's a couple important things to know about Nashville. One is we used to have a chief data officer, and we lost them. The government isn't doing a lot to support open data. So it's pretty hard to work with the government.
You're talking about Metro.
Metro. Nashville. Yeah. Oh, yeah, everything's saying Nashville. Right. And so it's hard to work with the government or to make projects about the national community when you don't have up-to-date and relevant data. And because there's so much turnover with people that are interested in our work, we've always had people coming to our meetups from Metro, it's hard to really build on our successes and build a deeper partnership. So we have pivoted to getting a wider base across the community so that more people know about the value of open data and engage with it and are pushing their representatives, council members, whatever, to support open data so that we can get back in the business of doing community-based projects with Metro. To improve government, improve the lives of people in the community. We also work with nonprofits. That's another aspect of our pivot is that nonprofits are much more aware of the issues of what needs to happen in the community. So our 2019 goals are community-driven data visualization. And that's sort of what I'm going to talk about here, but that's that idea of instead of trying to build apps like we have, we've built a couple that are really useful, but the number of people that are able to contribute to an app is very narrow, and it's a very biased sample of the community. And so doing data visualization, hopefully most people are used to in school or reading the newspaper, they're used to seeing charts and graphs. So some kinds of visualizations they're used to analyzing on some level, and a picture tells 1,000 words. So it's easy to engage a lot of people with one page or one, image on the tweet or whatever. And we're hoping that that's a way that we can get lots of people talking about the same thing, looking at the same information about a problem or a concern or an opportunity for improvement in the community. And then that conversation is what drives change, instead of us with a small group of developers that is a very biased perspective of the problem, building an app slowly with volunteers that's not maintainable, that the government doesn't use. So that's kind of the goal of our community-driven database. And then we also, just for what it's worth, we're also working on transparent administration, budget, elections, making sure that we become a representative organization in the community. And then raising the bar. And this might be something you guys are interested in, but because we're all volunteer-based, we're going to start probably later this year making, for certain projects, having people fill out applications to apply to be a official developer on a certain project, or official data scientist, or official journalist, or official, there's many skill sets that we're interested in, project manager, design thinking, and then the same thing on the other side. So whether it's a metro department or a nonprofit, making them apply. And what we get out of that is a commitment from them of what they're willing to do and finishing the project. Okay, so that gives you maybe a little bit of context about what Code for Nashville is and the direction that we're headed right now. And so then I've sort of summarized a lot of this stuff, and I'm not going to go deeply into it. But when I did this presentation on the 3rd of January, I came to this section and realized that it violated one of our principles at Code for Nashville, Media Protectors, which is if we want to be an open and inclusive community in terms of perspectives and backgrounds and skill sets, then we should not mention technology. We should not have a space at Code for Nashville where someone says, oh, well, it's really easy if you just import this library to React. And then 90% of the people there no longer can contribute to the conversation or feel that they no longer can contribute to the conversation. So it's for us at our meetings, it's a sin to mention the technology until it becomes absolutely necessary. For example, when we did a brainstorming at our last meeting, we had people brainstorm visualizations by drawing them on a piece of paper. Because if you were going to make a line graph of something like the differential policing of different demographics in Nashville over time, on the x-axis is time, on the y-axis would be like a per capita arrest, maybe, and each line would represent a different demographic, maybe age or by race or by, whichever of these sort of versions you're making. You can do that by someone leaving you a voicemail telling you the data points and you pulling out some different color pens and doing it on a piece of paper. That's the visualization. Technology just automates it and lets you iterate quicker through different possible visualizations. But any visualization you can make with a computer, you could do by hand. And that's important because we want to make sure that the ideas and the information comes first, and the technology is something that one person can step up and help with and train people, but it doesn't have to be a barrier to entry into the conversation. So when I got to this point, I realized that I had some ideas about technology, but it was too soon in the project to discuss it, and I thought this would be a better thing to bring here. So I'll talk a little bit about my background. I was a math major and philosophy major, then got into a data analyst role for a couple of years, did data scientist for a couple of years, and then became a data engineer. So part of what drew me away from data science and engineering, part of what pushed me away from data science was the feeling that most data science roles are in a position of telling the executives what they want to hear, which is an old tradition in BI and the industry. So I don't want to hear, or what you're saying is wrong. And I wasn't comfortable with fighting over the few roles where you could actually tell the truth. But also because I really enjoyed the tooling, and it got really frustrating for me that I would write code and it would disappear, or that I would write code and I'd worry that maybe I was doing something wrong because we weren't doing code review, or we didn't have really strong processes. And so I found myself being pulled in the direction of software engineering, and I got kind of excited about the and in a way that was high quality and that I felt confident of. And so that's how it pulled me into data engineering. But that puts me in a place of like pretty specialized data engineering. I'm working with like big data. I'm doing stuff in Scala, which no one uses, to do stuff in Spark, to do various of the problems that we have at our company. That's not a community-based tool for sharing information, and it's also overkill. The open data that we get from the government, it's not like right now we're getting live video feeds from police officers. We're talking about like very small data sets. Things like people apply for a zoning change for their business. That doesn't happen very many times a year. So you don't have to do really fancy tools in order to deal with this stuff. It would be cool if we could escalate to really fancy tools and really big data, but the conversation needs to change with the community all values that, and can't put the pressure on the government to spend the time and energy on that. So we have to get there. So I thought it would be interesting in this group to talk about tools and to play a game that might be different than we in the data science, data engineering community at this point. And this game is, what is the lowest barrier to entry data analysis of visualization? And what are the tools that aid that, being the lowest barrier to entry, where we can spend the least time talking about the technology, but still iterate somewhat quickly on different things. Have a basis for conversation. And you guys have all been reading my bullet points, because a little bit of slide time here, but it would be nice if it was open source or free, because we do everything open source, everything in our meetings is public. We don't, we like to say we're not the place to start. You're a startup unless your startup's open. Obviously, it's important that it's easy to use, and that's easy to use to the level of someone who is not programming for their day job, or wants to, or has gone to a boot camp. But even easier than that. It'd be nice to have beautiful visualizations. Beautiful in the sense that we might pull some things together and we might find something that's really interesting that we want to share with the community. And it would be great if we didn't have to start over in order to make that something worth tweeting. It'd be great if it had lots of features and flexibility. So as we want to extend it and we want to go deeper into bigger sets of data or things like that we could. And my general impression, this is a brainstorm, so I could be wrong, is that you can have a couple of these things, but you can't get all of them in any one tool or stack. Okay. Does anyone have any questions so far?
So one question on that. So when you say easy to use, is that you're referring not necessarily that the visualization itself will be easy to consume, like interactive, but literally easy to develop, right?
Very good question. Yes, primarily on the development side is what I'm talking about. And there is at any point something could grow and we could get, it's about being iterative. So very quickly in a discussion, we maybe land on something that's interesting. It seems like an insight that we haven't heard anyone talking about. And so to ramp that up into a broader community discussion, we might throw a couple developers at it and make a web page that's interactive and get really fancy with it. If it seems to get if it seems to have that value, then we can always continue to escalate to the point where we've got like an app updating every day or something like that. But it's about starting small. So that is easy for developers. Any other?
I have a million things to say, but I'm going to hold them.
Okay, great. And this is, this is not going to be a presentation. This is going to turn quickly into a brainstorm. So I'm enthusiastic to hear your ideas. Or scathing criticism, whatever. Okay. So this is the proposal that I spent kind of an hour thinking about. And again, I should have broken this up into more slides. But the idea is, you sort of initially break out into two groups. If you are a developer, and developer means someone who is comfortable writing code or willing to learn. If you are a developer, I think Jupyter Notebooks are actually pretty great. You can even, run Jupyter Notebooks in Scala if you want or something, but they are fairly intuitive. They let people iterate. I can imagine almost to the point of people get comfortable with this, you can have a conversation while, we'll try this. Okay, they can be exported, to all these different formats, which is also very interesting. So there's a lot of possible ways to get this out and published once you have something that's interesting, and to share it, like going straight through, a slideshow or at a meetup doing a presentation about an observation, or Markdown can obviously be created in static websites very easily. PDFs can be handed to government people who want it done in paper. So there's a lot of potential. And then for non-developers, so people who come in, they're really interested in the topic, and they almost didn't come because, unfortunately, our name is Code for Nashville. We really should be called Open Nashville. But they did make it in, and they're not really interested in learning code right now, but they're very interested in talking about homelessness or whatever is their issue. Then to do Markdown, because at very least it's just text, and learning how to do the formatting isn't that hard. You can pick that up over time. In fact, I got really excited about this. I don't know if you know, but Dropbox, the Papers app, if you copy out of it into like a text editor, and so in certain formats it'll format it like into Word, but in other formats it'll copy Markdown. And so someone could just use Dropbox, make head editors and things like that, and they're not really sure what Markdown is, but then you could just copy it once to a text file, and now it's Markdown, and you can put it anywhere. Except, of course, that Markdown has so many dialects. It's a fundamental flaw. Okay, so low barrier to entry, easy to use format. People could slowly learn a little bit about formatting. It's also really great because it uses HTML, conventions, so it has a higher likelihood of being accessible. Someone who has to navigate through, like someone who is visually impaired and has to navigate through the headers, things like that. Okay, and then this is my idea, because I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all visualization tool, especially in the free space or in the low coding knowledge space. What if we just say the pictures, you bring your own pictures? So however you create the visualization, if you have access to Excel, not everyone does, or if you have access to Tableau, or you have access to whatever, create the pictures, LibreOffice. If you have access and experience or willingness to learn how to use the tool, generate the picture, and then you can dump it into a Markdown. And what we could do is at the minimum is we could encourage people to describe how they created that image. And that might be, how can I reproduce this in Tableau? Or it might just be kind of the process or the concept that, once again, if I had a voicemail, I could draw the image myself. So what, it kind of brings us back to text, but what is the process to create this? And then for select projects, as they gain that value, they prove that they're interesting, something the community wants to engage, and maybe the community doesn't know, or there isn't enough conversation about, then we take those insights and we might make them into websites. And Code for Nashville, just historically, maybe accidentally, happens to use a lot of React in our apps, and so that would be, for us, would be an easy way to continue. And I think there are some React libraries that make pretty good visualizations. Okay, and then I think after that, okay, so that's the end of my proposal. I'm going to flip back to kind of the ideals, and then open it up for feedback and discussion. Actually, what I'm going to do, which is something I always do, is I'm going to take notes. Because I don't like to lose people valuable brainstorms and insights.
Also, in case you didn't know, that entire wall is a whiteboard.
Oh, okay, yeah, that might be better. Yeah, we can do that in the pictures. Great idea. You never know, this is not a dry erase marker.
That is one. Over there. Oh, it's on the wall.
Oh, thanks. Okay, cool. Let's do this. So, what do people think of the proposal, or what other ideas do you think would be valuable for this concern, I guess, the issue?
So I just want to throw out that I think we've been working on similar things for a long time in different arenas.
Came to the right place. Do you mean data nerds, or do you mean you?
She's with herself in school.
Me, like as an individual, so I worked with the state trying to get open data and got really frustrated. I am the manager of the data science and analytics program here.
Okay, yeah.
So every cohort we work on a problem with metro data. We worked with Robin Mace the first time around on a codes problem because codes is a mess. And so writing a classifier to categorize what is 788 categories into less than 20. And we actually my class went to the first Metro Data Days and did a presentation on that. This year we worked on affordable housing. So Metro got a report that they paid a consultant a lot of money for. And they did not get the data, they did not get the analytics workflow. So they basically have a PDF without any
so it's not reproducible or really transparent.
Exactly. So they wanted basically the class to reverse engineer it. Right. So Sean,
so they got the consultants to make something.
So Sean Bracestead, who's the PIO for codes, and Berkeley Allen, who's Metric Council representative, came to the class, presented the problem, and the class worked on it. And so, they spent a couple weeks creating both a lot of visualizations, a lot of maps, and we had the property value data, which is not in the open data, but they made it available to us. And so we could really look at how the cost of housing, how, what do you call it? When you classify a building as like residential.
Zoning? Okay.
Has changed over time, how values have changed over time in different neighborhoods. Had a student who built a model where you could change growth factors to project what affordable housing looked like in the future, which is basically what they asked for. I created a data camp course.
Wait, is that projecting affordable housing needs?
Yeah, well, the shortfall. The shortfall.
Yeah, okay.
So we use IRS. The IRS has zip code level aggregated tax return data. So you could get, instead of getting the big MSA median income, you could get it at a zip code level and then map housing to incomes to see what was affordable, which workforce, which are very specific definitions. And so that was a lot of fun. I feel like we learned a lot. They asked for some of the work that we did. Berkeley Allen wanted to take it back. I don't know what they did.
Disappear.
When I built a data camp course, I used, 8 to 10 Metro open data sources just to kind of get that out there. And just to your point about Jupyter, so we just started what we call an analytics jumpstart. Nicholas is in there. It's a 3-week try out what it's like to be a data analyst. We use Jupyter and Python for that because we feel like it's easy for people to get the hang of fairly quickly. And we're using open data. We're using the police calls data for 2013 and 2018. 2018, it's like somebody dropped the ball on updating it, so it stops.
Like
a
someone
particular point.
Lost their position in Metro?
Well, I don't think it's Robin's fault.
No, it's not her. No, it's not her fault. I'm saying. Metro's not investing in CPL.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I'm personal friends with Robin. We walk in the neighborhood 3 mornings a week.
Yeah.
But you used to be able to contact an individual, and now you submit a form which everybody can ignore.
Yeah.
So it's super frustrating. I just am curious about who you are working with in Metro, and how, it's getting people to apply to be on a project from Metro is kind of sort of a pie in the sky idea when people won't even engage.
Oh yeah, no, I mean we gave up on Metro. Like this year, if Metro gave up on the chief data officer, then we gave up Metro, and that's what and maybe we came a little bit after this, but that's why we are starting over with the community, because when the community recognizes the value of open data, then Metro, like there's only so long Metro can work, and that takes a lot of time. It's a lot of relationships, a lot of conversations, it's a lot of dialogue. It's a lot of networking across a lot of different groups, but that's the way that we can see to sustain enough pressure that Metro will, sustain over there.
I think part of it is about not only discovering the data and trying to get what exists now in order to build something for the future, but build a community that is involved in the present. If we're talking about a chief data officer position that's vacant, why would we not at least consider the idea of getting somebody involved from our own camp that would facilitate that?
Right.
I don't think people know. Government jobs are great. My wife works for the state, and it's fantastic. It's not technologically marveling, but there is a need and there's a benefit and there's an immediate partnership that's available with a community that's hungry for that. Right. So even if it isn't one position, maybe it's a way to get involved and demonstrate a business need. That's a thing that goes back to traditional state, federal, and corporate necessity is business need. And some of that is about not only finding a usefulness of the data, but learning how to speak another language. Which is what the technology is about. I know you said we don't want to, preach a certain Bible, but I mean, no offense, this is still cave drawings, right? We're still writing on walls indoors, and so the technology is really just another language. If you have,
but there are so many.
There are, just like there is in the world.
So
there's Indian and English and what have you, and we need translators for those. But not everybody speaks French.
Right. And so part of my concern, though, is that what the real insights are, the real understanding of data analysis and visualization is lost in the learning of technology. I'm really afraid of putting another technique up where someone says, everyone's trying to find Esperanto. Like everyone's so busy trying to find a language where they don't have to learn new languages anymore that I get worried that they aren't, like they've lost the purpose. Like we were trying to find a language to talk about that issue. We need to get back to talking about the issue. So that is a give and take there, and I agree with you. There is a limit. Like there is so much expressed in these languages, and like, for the math background, math is a language. But also in math, we make up notations all the time. We make them up and we throw them away when they're useful and when they're not. So I appreciate the value of languages to express new ideas, but the ideas is where the value ultimately is. And I don't want to make a barrier to entry. I want to give you a chance to respond because I kind of came directly at you.
I don't think there's a perfect solution that exists in this room or this world. But there are barriers to entry, and sometimes I just don't speak your language, which is fine.
Yeah.
Because there are French ambassadors and there are Canadian ambassadors and there are Australian ambassadors, and they all speak a little bit differently.
Right.
And there are diplomats, those that work in, a business level to help facilitate those. So I think it's fine if there are developers that only speak developing language. And there are people that only based on the truth of the fact, the mathematical quantifiability of the data, and that's fine. I think part of it is like not only worship at the altar of learning Python or React or whatever it is, but also like what is the ultimate need for that? How do we don't lose sight of the roots? Yeah. But also, most of all, it was just fascinating.
Well, I thought that was an interesting idea. That if the chief information officer role is not being fulfilled as a paying position in Metro, is there some community response to that could in some way substitute or encourage whatever that role? I think that's what you were saying.
Yeah, if there's a communal need and it's vacant, it's not going to be supplied from the governmental side, then the community needs to demonstrate that it has the facilities to fulfill that need.
Yeah.
And then it's really just selling it at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, we do have laws that Metro is not meeting, and part of it is because we don't have, we don't have some, whatever process or person to centralize Metro's data. We are not meeting some of the laws about Metro. So, I mean, like, one way, like, anyway, so that, at least what we've written in laws, unless that changes, that is a need. Communities already expressed that need, but we just are negligent on it, like, until it's
Jeff, just kind of to go to your point about telling a story, the first and last Metro data days, looking at codes violations, at the end, we drew a line between a fire at a halfway house that killed multiple people and the most offending violator of a particular code in the Metro data, to say if you were working with this data and utilizing it to get insight, this could have been prevented. And codes and fire were in that meeting, and they were both, oh my gosh, we need to do this. But I think having budgets cut, politics gets in the way.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to address that. I don't know who you've had conversations with. I think there are people in Metro who would partner.
Yeah.
So you're talking about relationships, so figuring out what relationships to foster.
Mm-hmm. Because I believe that you can't change government from the outside. I think you have to have partners inside.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and we are, like, so for example, I go to the meetup, if you will, called Engaging with Government Leaders, as a way to, like, try to start meeting a new batch of people of the government. We've done, we've made these connections. So I guess my concern maybe is not just making the connections, but making more insight in how to make them strategically or how to sustain them. Because we have also done, they asked us to build a zoning app to help people to know what the zoning requirements are for different places. And we did. And they didn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
And they stopped answering our email.
Who did you work with?
I didn't work, directly on this project. But I can definitely, like, we can think up more about it and strategize. But it's funny to hear, like, so they were working with multiple people and kind of dropped the ball on all of them. And I'm not trying to demonize government. Like, I know that they have jobs, they go home, like, their job has to end, they only have so much time, and they only get some support. And that's actually, the positive side, I think, of what I'm trying to advocate of, like, getting a broad base of community awareness. That gives the political support so that, sometimes what people want to do in government, they can't do it because there's not enough pressure to do it. And so pressure can also be support.
Yeah, and transparency is hard. Sometimes when somebody shines a light on what's happening, you just don't want that light to shine because it just creates more for you to do. But I think it's really important.
Yeah. So I think it would be really valuable to put our heads and experiences together about effectively engaging government, sustaining it.
Now, Tim, on your T-shirt you've got ProPublica.
Yes.
So that implies that there could be a role for journalism
Yes.
in this.
Yep. And that's why we've engaged Sarah Weatherby like pretty intensely, because she walked into our meetup with a background in journalism and an interest in software. But yeah, we've also had mixers with journalistic societies. So it's, there's a lot of skill sets that we need. And
Well, I'm just building on this idea of relationships.
Yeah.
That's another type of relationship
right.
that would help, as you say, to move the public towards or communicating a public's appreciation and desire for this kind of work.
Yeah.
So the topic I'd like to, this is a great conversation, but I think something that this group brings to the table that is unique to other groups is we do have a lot of data background. I'd love to hear us maybe get back on the topic of talking about tooling and coming up with solutions that would try and meet.
And I appreciate that, because we at our meetups, we often have half an hour to an hour of discussion, and I'm always surprised. I think people are going to leave. There's a lot of people who want to discuss these things, how to solve these problems. A lot of people care. So if you want to have those kind of open discussions about, the bigger problems, come to some of our meetups. They never conflict with this one.
They do.
Just demanding more of your time.
They do conflict with my class, and I'm like, none of my
Yeah.
students can ever go.
Yeah. Okay. We've thought about doing mornings. Or is closer to your class?
Yes.
Okay. You have an evening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Evening and Saturday.
That's good to know. And I'm going to do something about that. And so that's specifically the data analytics and science.
Yeah, I would love for you to come
that.
talk to the class and
Okay.
ask them if they would engage when they would engage.
Right.
Do you have people that come from state agencies for the presentations for the cohorts right now?
Yes. One person that I'm thinking of, Alex, who's a member of this group as well.
But ideally, we could bring more.
Yeah.
Are a lot of the projects that you guys are going to work on related to open data, stuff like this?
No, sometimes people use open data, Metro open data, but not for their capstones generally.
It's whatever data is available.
They just have it. I mean, they could get excited about a project with Tim's group and maybe do a capstone around it.
You need to go before they decide what the capstone project will be.
Timing is everything.
Yeah, that's a great point. So yeah, does anyone have feedback on the tooling that I presented, or even just general observations about different tools you've used? Because I think hopefully this would be applicable for you all as well, you in your jobs, but communicating about data with non-technical peers and other departments and things like that work. It's valuable. So anyway, I'm open to all sorts of observations about the accessibility of data analytics tooling.
For the non-developers, yeah, you mentioned Excel, Tableau. I think that you can also use Power BI.
Yep.
That's the pretty cool.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah, based on Excel, right? So they have a lot of data visualization options.
All right.
The nice thing about Power BI is it has some built-in data engineering components to it. You can do some transformation, or not simple. You can actually do pretty extensive data transformations.
Okay. And so, this is does Power BI come? Did you have Excel your Power BI?
Yeah, it's a free. Lower program.
If you have a PC.
Yeah. Okay. It's not Mac supported. So
yeah, it's Microsoft.
Oh, it's Microsoft.
Yeah.
Free with Excel on PC. Those are kind of our constraints.
Windows.
Microsoft.
Windows.
Yeah.
And having a place to deploy it. I don't know that there's a free, like Tableau has Tableau Public. I don't know that Power BI has a equivalent.
You can put on GitHub pages. You transfer the notebook or any of the visualizations.
So specifically, I'm guessing the notebook would not be consumable on GitHub pages, but the visualizations. Okay, so because the notebook would be like one big PDF.
Whenever you transfer a notebook into GitHub, it automatically displays it as kind of like HTML format. So it uses JavaScript to display it to the screen.
There's a notebook.
Oh, sorry, no, Jupyter notebooks?
Or GitHub in general. Yeah, Jupyter notebooks and any visualization software you use, whenever you put it into GitHub, it transfers that into just JavaScript that displays to the screen.
Yes, but I guess like Power BI is Excel. So I can take an Excel workbook.
So the reason
wow.
Jupyter
I didn't know
works.
that would work. That would really
The reason Jupyter works is the notebook viewer software is installed, which is specific to Jupyter.
Right. So you're saying GitHub Pages knows how to read and display statically an Excel document.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that work for multiple tabs?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. So
I've used it for all sorts of code and all sorts of projects, and all those displays just fine for me. It displays SQL queries, all sorts of things.
okay.
Power BI is Excel.
So the viewer is separate from the kernel, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. The viewer is
It's GitHub
HTML,
software.
maybe
Right.
JavaScript,
So right, and it's static.
and the kernel underneath it is
Right.
just feeding it, feeding the viewer. So you should be able to export the viewer. And it's static.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to
Right. Do
edit
anything.
a cell or Okay, we'll definitely play with that. I made a bad assumption that GitHub would not display Microsoft. I mean, of course.
Yeah.
That's why I changed rapidly.
So a tool that may not be as accessible, but I have heard a lot about it. I'm actually going to take a class with D3.js.
Yep.
Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, familiar with D3.
Yeah, that's what you added for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
not
not
Oh,
Well, I mean, it's on the spectrum, and because maybe this is like having a buffet open to people.
So we're talking tools.
So
Yeah,
I'll just
yeah.
throw out our shiny then.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
what
great.
I want to propose. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm pretty impressed with Bouquet.
And what
There's
I've
a whole-
heard of it, but is it a JavaScript library?
Yeah. Well, it puts up visualizations in JavaScript so you can interact with them,
You're also using Python.
which I think is a little that's what D3JS does, I think. DOKEH, yeah.
And both it.
Yeah.
And
Now we're into the whole world of Python ecosystem, which is.
That's what I use.
yeah,
you
so
know.
Plotly along with
Oh, yeah.
Plotly, sklearn,
You have like a big list of things.
I mean, it goes on and on.
What are you going to do with these? It's like if people come in,
Yeah.
are you going to say, if someone comes in off the street with a neat story in their head, they're not going to immediately know how to
This
use
is
it.
way down.
Exactly, right. So I think these might be valuable to
way
place these on kind of the spectrum. I also think, this idea comes from people showing up. So, for example, sort of the Sarah Lee journalism background, saying, like, I'd love to jump on any of these projects, but I want a software mentor, like someone who's familiar with. And so that's why this is kind of, this huge ecosystem is kind of why I thought, like, bring your own visualization, plug it into a Markdown.
Yeah.
We'll all speak Markdown. We can always take Markdown and shove it into a website. But then maybe the key is just to have someone who is very comfortable with some tooling, sitting down with someone and having a conversation.
The people that come to your group are interested in promoting like social reform type stuff, some idea that they got in their head. They're also probably interested in promoting their own career and developing themselves. I wonder if there's any way that you could like pair these things together so that like maybe we'll advertise in advance. You say, this night, the first 30 minutes, we're going to walk you, you're going to learn R Shiny. And I know nothing about R Shiny. but then make sure you come with a data set because you'll be expected to run through your own data set and provide.
So like, you'll do activity.
Yeah, I think you could pull a lot of people in, and you could, and rather be in, at some level of scale, you want kind of the Tower of Babel type thing where you've got a mixture of everyone that's you need the news people to reach out, and they're not, news people, if they're doing right, are not going to be necessarily making charts and graphs because they're news people. They're specialized to do something very unique in the future. But as the core seat of the group, since it does have the history of code for Nashville, it probably would be good to do some sort of specialization, make sure the core is big, and once you know, if people are coming to promote their own career and to promote the social good, then occasionally you'll get these specialists that come in that can really augment the voice that the core group has. I wonder if there's any. I would like to learn some of these tools, but I only know like Jupyter. So it'd be really cool if I could like come in and have like 30 minutes of learning and then 30 minutes or an hour of hacking on something. With what I just learned.
It's a great idea.
Workshop style.
Is that kind of like into your Saturday sessions, your Saturday hack?
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of all blended together now. But yeah, in theory, we have sort of the hack nights, which are monthly and are more likely to have a presentation or have a speaker. And then the Saturday missions are more like, okay, so we want to build something. Sitting down, breaking into kind of small groups. But they've totally blended together. They're just an evening option and a morning weekend option.
I think there might be
it's a
another
really good idea. And I like for example, a lot of people did come to the early January one because of the presentation. And like I got that feedback from people.
I used to, weird metaphor that came to mind, I used to do swing dancing in high school.
Yeah.
And like I couldn't dance a lick, but at every Friday night or Saturday, church on Highland Avenue would have swing dance night. They have a big live band. The only reason I came though was the first 30 minutes you showed up early. They had like really slow class about like here's how you move your feet. But that gave me the ability to actually enjoy the rest of the night. Otherwise, I'd be a wallflower and I would just hung it on the wall. But yeah, I would be more inclined to come to something like this if I knew I could learn something and then jump in on it afterwards.
Yeah. So, and then my bias would be probably to pick things that are open source and as low grade as possible. And I think, frankly, like Jupyter Notebook and Python is like maybe.
R shiny is.
Except, do you think R is easy to learn?
Let's not start this conversation.
Sorry. It's like, you guys already know that's a rabbit hole for your group.
You talk about the shiny. Yeah, shiny is the way they go down that is more like a jazz. So it's more like a developer web application. So if you have that kind of concept,
Yeah. Well, right. I'm talking about people who don't have either of those concepts. And like, it would be nice to have people, like, there's a lot of people in Nashville who do not have internet at home. The only way of accessing the internet, you know, is on their smartphone. And only when they have Wi-Fi.
Yeah, is much easier for that kind of people.
Right, because like to visually interact with it. I think there's a lot of value. Like I think, and I think there is a lot of value to it, especially realizing that we have an easy way to publish it.
You can give them free tools to help learn Python or any other language. Like SoloLearn has an app that you can go on your phone and learn any, like, they have 12 different coding languages.
It's called SoloLearn?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's how I learned Python originally.
And it's usable on its own?
Oh yeah, that's how I learned, because I was working at a factory like a year and a half ago. So on my off time, I'd just be like watching, because I worked at Hankook, which is a tire manufacturing, so I'd be watching like steel go by and just on my phone just learning Python.
In there.
Yeah, I mean that's a great testimonial. So definitely check that out. Okay. I can almost imagine this is like evolving into some meetups that start with technical skills and a library activity, and other ones that start with like the skills as well, but like design thinking or other types of skill sets that might be more accessible or more interesting to other parts of the community, and then dive into the activity. What I'm going to say, ways to visual, like exercise their visual ability, which design thinking does. And then there's this like go learn at home option. I also like this idea of, what do you guys think of like, having a session where people coalesce on a couple questions or ideas, then having people with the experience go and create something as sort of homework, come back and present it. We can spend our time together critiquing and learning from a prototype and saying like, and then that also helps you focus on the concepts and ideas versus the technology. So it's like the thing already exists, but what does it actually express? Is, for example, the quality of police data going down, as well as we know, you can't just take data at its face value and do something with it. You have to also ask, how did data get in here? Is it represent the real world in its raw form? So anyway, so thinking about sort of several different kinds of sessions. So prototype and critique.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure what time it is.
We're
there. Okay.
We're close.
All right. There is swag here if you're interested. And yeah, if there's anything else I want to discuss, or I don't know if there's any business needs to do as data nerds.
No. Well, actually, yeah, might as well on there. So for anyone who's in Slack, you know that we have switched our weekly meetups to Belmont. We've met there a few times now. It's been pretty successful in the sense that it's open.
Not freezing, and you can control the temperature.
Yeah. So as usual, if anyone's interested in coming up to that, come up to me. I'll get you in the Slack, and then we can continue these kind of project conversations around the data.
If you're not on our Slack channel, if you'd like to get in there, we can sign you right up.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I'll leave this out for a few minutes.